Hi, I'm Lindsey here, and thanks for joining us on another holiday edition of Quinte Connection. Coming up, we have more from Operation Red Nose Quinte and a little bit more about the Quinte Ballet School of Canada, as it's that time of year for their big Christmas show. But joining us from the Hastings and Prince Edward Learning Foundation, the operations manager Kellie Brace is with us, as there's lots to talk about as the Feed the Meter campaign is officially kicked off on Giving Tuesday. So Kellie, it's so great to have you back on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
For folks who don't know Kellie, I mean, we see the signs all over the place this time of year, but walk us through kind of Feed the Meter campaign and what the impact it makes here locally.
So the Feed the Meter campaign is a fundraiser for local food for learning programs. And it's the 15th anniversary of this fundraising campaign in Trenton, Belleville, and Picton in the month of December. Instead of paying for parking, it's free parking, but when you put money in those parking meters, it's a donation to Food for Learning. And it has, it's a prime example of every little bit helps. That whole philosophy of, every little bit adds up to something big. By putting spare change in parking meters, we're able to collect upwards of $25,000 a year that goes right to buying groceries for our student nutrition programs in local schools.
Good to hear. Now, our grocery bills aren't going as far-reaching as they once did even a couple of years ago. So what are the impacts that you're seeing with the Learning Foundation with kind of making sure that kids have those snack programs still in place at schools?
Well, we all do our grocery shopping and see what's happening to the prices of those basic staple food items. And we're feeling the pinch on two different sides. Our grocery bills obviously are going up because of inflation, but also because those bills are going up for families, there's more students that are relying on the student nutrition programs just to help their parents and caregivers stretch the grocery budget at home. So our costs are going up and our participation is going up. So we're struggling to ensure that we have the funds needed to meet the demand for this school year. We're spending an average of $17,000 to $22,000 a week on groceries, which is going to add up to about $800,000 in need for this year. And at this point, we are projecting a bit of an operating deficit. So fundraising initiatives like Feed the Meter is critical.
How big is that deficit, Kellie, and where do you expect to kind of bridge the gap? What are some ideas right now?
Well, originally in September, our Food for Learning operating budget for this year was approximately $100,000, but the provincial government announced an infusion of funds for this year that's going to bring $70,000 into Food for Learning. So it really closed that deficit to about $30,000, which is, we're hoping, a little bit more attainable. We are lucky to have a bit of stocked away in reserves if we have to dip into that, but we know that's a slippery slope and we don't want to have to rely on that year after year or we'll be out of business in no time. So we're doing everything we can. This morning we did road tolls in Picton and in downtown Trenton on Giving Tuesday to bring in some additional funds to support that Feed the Meter campaign and try to close that deficit gap.
How many schools is the breakfast and the snack program in roughly here locally, and how many students do you support right now?
Last school year, our program served 1.4 million meals and snacks. That's a record high. We don't have a projection yet for this year, but certainly I can't see how it would climb over 1.4 million. And we have 68 education sites from Bancroft to Picton, Trenton, all the way to Deseronto that feed over 7,000 students every day.
What has the reaction been like, especially as the Feed the Meter campaign kicks back off again? Because it's a well-known campaign in Quinte now.
The community, Hastings and Prince Edward, are so generous, and the feedback we're getting is really encouraging. That I think that we'll see a tremendous amount of support this year to help us get us across the finish line and make sure that students have what they need to eat and learn right through to the end of June. So we couldn't be more thankful and appreciative of every dollar that comes in.
What's the status on volunteers these days for folks who go into school and serve all these students? Do you still need more volunteers?
Well, last time we chatted, Lindsay was in the middle of the pandemic when volunteers weren't in the schools at all. So we're starting to see the trickle back. Schools are sort of migrating back a little bit to the way things were before, but we're in a new reality. So things look very different than they did pre-pandemic. And volunteers are still needed in the schools as we try to expand those programs back and start preparing whole food meals again rather than in the bins in the classrooms. So the volunteer situation, there's always a need for volunteers in the schools, and we always have a need for volunteers for our special events as well.
What would the time commitment be for volunteers in a school, let's say? Because every school operates a little bit different depending on the structure of the timetable.
Well, I think the joy of the programs, because they offer the programs every day, schools are very flexible in meeting the needs of the volunteers. So a volunteer can volunteer 1 day a week, or they can volunteer 5 days a week, right from September to June. So depending on the availability, we make it fit.
How can people learn more about volunteering, Kellie, especially heading into the holiday season and hopefully with a renewed sense of optimism and hope heading into 2024?
Yes, I hope we all feel that as the year comes to a close. And for more information, please visit our website, hpelearningfoundation.com, or feel free to give us a call at 613-966-1170.
Is that how we can make donations directly as well? And is there a tax receipt with that too?
Absolutely. For donations of $20 or more, we do issue a charitable tax receipt, and donations can be made online through our website using a credit card, or can be mailed into our office, or even just over the phone. We can take credit cards as well.
As we reflect on the year that's been, especially in your role with Hastings and Prince Edward Learning Foundation, what are some of the things you're reflecting on, especially heading into kind of the more need that we're seeing?
Well, I think, we started last school year coming back full time from a pandemic, from lots of changes. And, we started thinking about the new era for the Learning Foundation. And we started with a rebranding project, sort of redefining who we are and what we do in the new way. There's a lot of tradition in Food for Learning and the Learning Foundation. And at the same time, we are working with the Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board to launch some new initiatives where we can support students through science and technology, for example. So we have a new look, we have some new staff, and a whole lot of energy going into 2024 to meet the needs of all students across Hastings and Prince Edward counties.
Yeah, we see the new logo behind you there, Kellie. What are some of the things you can reveal about some of the new programs coming online? Anything you can say yet?
Well, like I say, science and technology is sort of a bit of a focus for this year. There are schools that have all the technology they need, the larger schools with a larger population, and some of the smaller schools don't have the capacity to fundraise. So we're going to work with them to try and make sure that all the schools have interactive display boards and Chromebooks and things like that they need to maximize learning. Here in 2023-24 looks very different than it did 5 and 10 years ago. So we want that technology to be available. And we're also, just to give you, it's a little bit of a secret, don't say, but we're working on some robotic projects as well. Some really fun things that I think the students will have fun engaging in and learning about science that way.
Well, Kellie Brace, once again, the operations manager with Hastings and Prince Edward Learning Foundation. Feed the Meter program continues for the rest of the month. Kellie, thanks so much. Good luck in 2024, and hopefully we'll see you shortly. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me.